With the video game industry still doing a bit of catching up from 2020 and its real world events outside the gaming industry, we find ourselves enjoying one of the greatest hobbies ever, playing RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. 2021 was not a perfect year for RPGs. We had a slew of ports, remakes, and remasters, but it's not to say we didn't have some diamonds in the rough. If you'd like to see what some of our other staff members have on their list, head over to SwitchRPG.com or click on the link in the video description. So what made my top 5 RPGs on the Switch? I break it all down now, and as always, don't forget to like and share the video. Before I really dive in here, I wanted to shout out some of the games I think are definitely worth a look at despite not making my top 5. Griftlands is a very cool card-based RPG where the decisions you make in the game have a tremendous impact in how the world treats you. The combat mechanics are complex, but provide you with satisfaction once you've figured it out. Monster Hunter Stories 2 isn't much of a hidden gem, but it also doesn't really stand out from the crowd. The simple turn-based combat may be a bit of a turnoff for some, but for others that just want that RPG candy, this is it. As said with most Ys games, it's a solid experience all around. The music is good, the narrative is good, action combat is good. Ys 9 is a good game. Get it. Black Book builds an awesome atmosphere stemming from Slavic lore. It has an interesting narrative stemming from its dialogue system, and it features a unique combat system that utilizes cards. When I first played The Legend of Chang-Ting, I was taken back to a time where I was sitting in my room reading comics. The visual art style and the way it's presented is something I haven't seen done well in a while. The combat doesn't really do anything innovative, but it's very well put together. Most disappointing. King's Bounty 2. In a time where my love for strategy RPGs was at an all-time high, in comes King's Bounty 2. The politics, the magic, the world building, the frame rate, the resolution, and the sluggishness traversing the world only led to utter disappointment. The same disappointment I felt when I played Mutant Year Zero on the Nintendo Switch. I'm not a frame rate snob at all, but King's Bounty 2 got me to the point where it made me physically sick, and I had to stop playing. There have been some improvements made to the game since I initially played, and maybe that means I need to give it another chance, but boy, I sure hope I can stomach it. Shin Megami Tensei 5 does a lot right. The turn-based combat is very well thought out, and it's mostly contributed by the customization of all the demons. You're able to combine the skills of 2 demons to create the perfect ally to fight alongside you. Not only can you combine skills, but you can create new, potentially more powerful demons by fusing a pair of demons together. The soundtrack is really good. There were moments where I'd be roaming around, get into combat, find myself just grooving. Do people even say that anymore? There's a little bit of a learning curve to all the systems in place, and the challenges of the bosses and mini-bosses alike, but I feel it's all very palatable. Save the game, and when you think you've saved the game, make sure you save it again, because there's no autosave. I do have some issues with SMT5. It's not a perfect game by all means. In my opinion, the mediocre narrative with forgettable characters and the tones of red and brown throughout the game kind of get a little sickening. There are some areas with nice vistas, but overall the muddy colors really held SMT5 back for me. If you love consuming popcorn RPGs, Bravely Default 2 is the one for you. It has a good all-around story, music, and turn-based combat with a job system that will keep you coming back for more. Square Enix has essentially brought the band back together. Literally. The chibi graphic art style and the composer have returned to the series. I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As expected, there is a major shift in graphical fidelity with this iteration. Does Bravely Default 2 do anything new to the series? No, not really. Did it need to? Maybe. Either way, I highly recommend it. If you've been subscribed to the channel or listened to past episodes of the podcast, you know I've been touting Eastward ever since it was announced in a showcase so long ago. True to my initial thoughts, Eastward excels in areas where I expected, but falls a little short in one area. The pixel art is amazing, alongside the dynamic lighting. The characters are interesting, the story seems a bit slow for my liking, but good nonetheless. The music in Eastward is probably one of the best I've heard in an indie title in a long time. Absolutely top notch. The one area where Eastward falls behind is in its combat. It's very, very simple and straightforward and leaves kind of more to be wanted here. I'm going to be truthful here with this title. I did not complete it to its fullest. However, I will say what I've played has to be some of the best action combat I've played in an RPG in a long time. While I still prefer the Dark Souls-esque type of enemy engagement, Monster Hunter has also been refined in such a way that it's almost mathematical. You get out what you put in. It certainly requires some time investment to fine-tune your weapon choice and playstyle. Monster Hunter Rise looks and runs beautifully, especially on the hardware it's running on. Capcom has done an amazing job at supporting Monster Hunter Rise, whether it's through general patches or the continuous DLC. The Monster Hunter series has grown with each iteration, adding new mechanics with every title, and Monster Hunter Rise is no exception. The newest being the wire bug, which allows a vertical traversal of the environment unless you take in some of the game's amazing vistas. Rampage mode is also another interesting take on the tower defense genre. Players prepare for an incoming monster attack on the village with hopes of surviving and taking down the enemy. There's so much to say regarding Monster Hunter Rise, so if you're a fan of combat-focused RPGs, this is the one to get. Diablo 2 Resurrected not only brings back some nostalgia of rummaging through dungeons, but Diablo 2 was also my most played game this year, coming in at over 80 hours. As with all Diablo games, the fun doesn't end once you've completed the game. The fight to min-max Diablo is very strong. This remastered version has a lot of much needed changes from the original. An entirely redone soundtrack and a graphical overhaul are the most obvious differences, but some important quality of life revisions were implemented to make the experience much more enjoyable. The initial launch of Diablo was met with some server-related problems, which was kind of to be expected as we've seen this with some other Diablo releases. In my opinion, Diablo 2 probably has one of the best storylines in its series, but let's be honest, none of us truly played Diablo for its story mode. In all, Diablo 2 is fun to play and runs really well on the Nintendo Switch, and I highly recommend picking it up as it's my #1 top Nintendo Switch RPG. Do it. There you have it, a list of some of my favorites that I've played this year. What did I leave off? Was anything snubbed in your opinion? What are your top 5 Nintendo Switch RPGs? As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and also visit SwitchRPG.com for the latest in Nintendo Switch RPGs.